Hey, this is Angela with this week's Living the Shift. So, coming into 2013, we have a lot on our plates this year, a lot of changes coming up. And my understanding is we're sort of like in between gears and ready to roll, okay? And things are going to move faster than ever before. So, the big theme for this year is to be able to be as fluid and have this go as graceful and easy as possible. The key is to do things differently. We have cycled around, from my understanding, we have cycled around many times. We've come to this epitome of spirituality and consciousness and then crashed because of the experiences of the ego, and that was all part of what we wanted to experience. But we've done this a number of times. Lemuria, Atlantis, ancient Egypt, and other civilizations where we have peaked and then crashed and had to start all over again. But that was just part of the lesson. So my understanding is now we are at the final iteration and we are going to do it so that we can move on this time. We've completed the lessons and all that kind of stuff. But the key to doing all this so that we don't have to repeat it again, cycle back around again, is this. It is time for us to start doing things differently. That is the theme. How do we do it differently this time? You know, there's that quote from Albert Einstein. What's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and then expecting different results. Well, that's what we've been doing for ages. We keep on doing this stuff. You know, wars in the name of peace, wars in the name of, like God or spirit. And it's like, okay, seriously? Because if the universe, as I understand it, which is, and the oneness is simply unconditional love, how can there be anything of resistance that would come from that? So the key is for us to start looking at things differently, start acting differently, start reacting differently than we have been doing in the past. And I'm sure I'm going to have a number of webcasts that are just specifically on this topic from different aspects, because it's now time for us to break the habit. We have gotten into such a habit, it is so ingrained in us, to act from fear, to act from the ego's projections of fear, anxieties, anger, guilt, doubt, sorrow, pain, resentment, all that kind of stuff. And the key is that 9 times out of 10, when we get something in, like, oh, don't do that because we're gonna get sick or we're gonna get hurt or whatever, that's the ego. Whenever we have that urgency in a voice like that, that comes from the ego. It's projecting. It's a projection, and the higher self. I've talked about this many times. How we are. It's sort of like the ego is the owner of this level of, has been the owner of this level of reality. And it's sort of like the pawn on a playing board, because all it can do is see what's right in front of it, right behind it, on each side of it, what the other pawns are doing, and it makes its decisions based on that. The higher self is looking down at the board and saying, okay, no, this is a better way to go, even though you can't see it from where you are right now. And then there's the higher self that says, well, we can just recreate the game as we so choose anyway. But just even going to the level of seeing the whole board, that is why in moving forward right now, my understanding is things are going to get so crazy and change so drastically. We're shifting right into a new age, that the key is to pull out those partitions in any way we can so that we have that full access to our higher selves. It is our right. It is the divinity within us. And we have forgotten that just when we're down here playing in this playing field. And I had a huge, wonderful teaching experience that happened this past weekend. So I was teaching my Trinity Energy Progression class, which actually in Trinity Energy Progression is all about the basics. It's pulling out all the partitions between the different levels of consciousness, the different versions of the self, the different energies that we have split, sort of like in that magician's the magician's box, where the assistant goes and they put down those partitions and they pull it apart and whatever. Well, it's all an illusion, right? And they just pull it back up and the assistant comes out and is all full. Well, that's what we're doing now, is we're pulling out all of those partitions that we've put in, because that's really what we've created, is this illusion of all those partitions, right? So Trinity really focuses on that. So anyway, which is really funny, because of course a lesson like this would come through the class, and every time I teach the class there's a huge lesson that comes with it, right? Or some kind of big epiphany or whatever, which is what I loved so much about it. Anyway, so I'm in North Carolina, and I was teaching the class in North Carolina, and we're here in January, and January is very up and down in North Carolina, and it's like that every year. One day it can literally be 75 degrees, and 2 days later it can be 25. And we can have ice and snow or whatever. And then it can go back up to 55 or 60 a couple of days later. That's exactly what's happened in the past week here. We were in 70s. It dropped down, and by the end of the week, we had these projections, these weather projections that we were going to get like ice storms and snow and all that kind of stuff. So I kept on asking, should I do anything? And many times, more times than not, unfortunately, our weather forecasts are like they way overestimate what's going to happen, or they way underestimate what's going to happen. So they're not really a reliable source of what's going to happen. So I kept on asking, okay, so is anything going to happen that should prevent me from having the class? No. Okay. So as it got closer and they were saying it was going to be more, it was getting more and more of an intense forecast, and I'm going, okay, should I change the time of the class? Because it started on Friday midday and then ran all day, ran Friday afternoon, then all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And I was like, so should I change the start of the class, the hours of the class, at least on Friday, because that was when this weather was coming in? And I kept on getting no. And I was like, so is it for the highest and best for me and for the students to leave it exactly as it is? And I got yes, very, very clearly. So then what happens is the ego tries to project and says, oh, well, the weather will be fine. Don't worry about it. I started having students like emailing me, and I said, no, it's fine. I got guidance. I asked for guidance, and guidance was that we are going to keep it where we start. And simply to tell you that it's winter, and it'll be a little messy, but leave with plenty of time to get here. And if you get here a little late, it's fine. We'll just start when everybody's here. And just to be careful and calm and clear and all that. And so that's really the message that I gave to my students. And so Friday comes, and the class is supposed to start at 1, and it starts to snow and sleet at like 11 o'clock. So by noon, it was getting pretty messy. And so then there was a part of my ego going, oh my God, look at that. We made the wrong decision, blah, blah, blah. So you thought that was the right answer and all this kind of stuff. So I kept on asking, is it still for the highest and best to continue with this? Yes, continue on. Continue on is all I kept on getting. We ended up starting about 45 minutes late because it took that long for everybody to get there, right? But then we were able to do it. And the funny thing was, so I was then guided to hold, and of course I held the vibration of the class, held the room, held all the intentions of keeping everybody safe also and everything, and I could see it. And that's what I said to her, is I could see everybody here and fine, without any issues, without any accidents, all that kind of stuff. So everybody came. They came. It was awesome, and it was sort of challenging a little bit, because even though everybody trusted that, there was a part of their ego underneath the surface going, oh my God, I can't believe this, that we actually came to this. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But the good part was that the students, all of them, had at least the clarity of saying, okay, well, the guidance is this, and there was nothing that came up for them that was like, oh my God, no, we can't do this. I can't do this. And so they all came. So what happens, and everybody was fine as projected. So here's the thing, as we move forward, things are going to get crazier and crazier in terms of changing what's going on around us. And so my understanding is the big lesson from that is this: the more we go forward, the more important it is for us to have this clear connection to the guidance from our higher selves, because there are many times we're going to get this guidance that is not going to look logical, quote unquote, to where our ego sees it from this level of existence, especially as things are shifting. And so that's why it's so, so, so important to find some way to actually tap in, to have that clear line to the higher self without, with the discernment that it is the higher self and not the ego. And again, it goes back to if you're getting, oh my God, you can't do that, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get killed, you're going to blah, blah, you're going to crash your car. That's all from the ego, okay? So there was a part of me on Friday saying, did we make the wrong decision? That's the ego. And I kept on getting clearly, no, it is fine. Everybody will make it there, and just continue on. And so we did. And it was fine. As I was told, everything was fine. So it's time for us to change the way we make our decisions, because whenever we say logic dictates, that comes from the ego. The ego is saying, look at everything of all the pawns of what's going on around me, and I'm going to make my decision based on that. Look at the drama they put into stuff on the news, onto the TV, and people make decisions based on what the news says, or based on what, the drama that goes on around us says. So instead of saying, I could get killed, I could get hurt, of course you could. You could get killed or hurt every single day you go out on the road. But you only think about it when it's in those kind of conditions, because that's what is brought up all the time in the collective consciousness and the mass consciousness. And even if we've done it and it's happened a bazillion times before, guess what? Now it's time to do it differently. Make our decisions based on what the higher self says, even if it doesn't seem logical or doesn't seem like it makes sense in the moment. And that is the most, my understanding is that's the most important thing for us moving forward. And the more comfortable we become with that, the more we can stand in our truth, the more we can move forward and get past all the muck and all the shifting without getting caught up in the drama and the trauma and all the illness related to it. We can move forward, and that's the key. So that was the huge lesson from the class. That was the huge lesson from the weekend, and we ended up having a great class. So that's your homework for this week. Your homework for this week is to look at what decisions are you making based on fear, based on projections by the ego. We have it so ingrained in us that we don't even think about it. Like, oh, how many people would have said, "Oh, you're crazy. I can't believe you kept that class going." Why? Why am I crazy? My guidance said everybody would be fine, and guess what? Everyone was fine. And I kept on hearing it from other people, including my mother. Oh, blah blah, and people could get hurt. Yeah, guess what? Nobody did. Nobody did. So that's all about having faith, taking a step forward and trusting, even if you can't see what's beyond that next step. And so it's time again to start reevaluating how we're making our decisions. So that's your homework for this week, is to look at how you're making your decisions. So many of us are making decisions based on the ego's projection, on others' ego's projections, on mass consciousness ego projections, and see how you can shift that. Start working on, if you haven't already, start working on tapping in some way, clearing the chatter in your mind to tap into the higher self and be able to listen and remember how to listen to our wholeness, our higher consciousness, and to know with certainty how to move forward even when things around us look contrary to what our decisions are. So on that, I'm going to let you go. We'll talk to you next week. This is Angela with this week's Living the Shift.